Welcome to Woman Things, the podcast, a show dedicated to women who want to connect with their bodies and optimize their health for a more holistic and balanced life. We are your hosts and women's health experts, Cara Moore and Kirsten Humphreys, and we will be taking you on a journey of education and empowerment.
Stay tuned each week while we break down all the hottest topics in women's health today, including food and nutrition, periods, gut and skin health, fertility, and everything in between. You can find us on Instagram at Woman Things, that's woman, WOMXN, and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform to keep up to date with all the latest episode releases. We hope you enjoy the episode today, and thanks so much for tuning in.
This podcast is sponsored by London Nootropics and A Little Find. London Nootropics are a London-based company that makes a blend of high-quality coffee with nootropic and adaptogenic tonics that help to balance the body and boost brain function. We love these coffee blends. Our personal favorite is the Grind blend, which has a mixture of lion's mane mushroom and rhodiola that helps boost mental clarity and focus and improves overall motivation. If you love a morning cup of coffee, why not try some of these amazing blends for yourself? You can find them at londonnootropics.com or on Instagram at london.nootropics. And A Little Find are an online department store where you can discover innovative, aesthetic, and conscious brands on one single platform for all ages across all categories. We love A Little Find as it shines a spotlight on brands who have a particular focus on being eco-friendly, low-waste, and sustainable. It was from being asked, just where did you find that, many times that the idea for A Little Find was born. You can find them at alittle.find.com or on Instagram at A Little Find. Hello and welcome to Woman Things, the podcast. On today's episode, we will be talking about the importance of your sleep, how the sleep cycle works, and sharing some important tips on how to get a great night's sleep. First off, we'll quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Kirsten. I'm a registered nutritional therapist, certified health and wellness coach, as well as an NLP practitioner. I specialize in women's health and well-being, and in particular, I work with women one-on-one with any issues revolving around their skin, gut, hormones, and mental well-being. I am passionate about educating women on how to live healthier and happier lives and helping each person to develop the tools to gain control over their own health and mindset. And my wonderful friend and co-founder of Women Things, Cara Moore, is joining me here today.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Cara. I'm a clinical nutritionist and fertility awareness educator. In my online clinic, I work with women who are struggling with problematic periods and hormonal concerns. I also help women who are struggling with their fertility conceive naturally and provide nutritional support throughout the journey of pregnancy and into early motherhood. I also coach the fertility awareness method, so I teach natural contraception to women and those who want to get more in tune with their fertility and menstrual cycle. So you can find me on Instagram at fempowered_health or on my website www.fempoweredhealth.com. And you can find Kirsten on Instagram at kickstart_with_Kirsten and on her website www.knhwellness.co.uk. Okay, so today we're going to kick things off by talking about the introduction to the sleep cycle. So first of all, I think it's important to note that sleep is integral to our physical, mental, and emotional well-being, and a good night's rest helps the body to recover and recharge. The physiological processes happen during the night while we're asleep, which is essential for our health and well-being, so we'll be covering all of that today. So first of all, let's start talking about the sleep cycle and how that's regulated, because it's really important to understand when it comes to getting a good night's sleep, and also to understanding where you might be having issues when it comes to sleep quality or sleep quantity. So essentially we have an internal 24-hour clock and it's called the circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm governs how our bodies function throughout the day. So it plays a role in our sleep and wake cycle, but also our mood, appetite, hormonal production, metabolism, cognition, and so much more. The circadian rhythm is controlled by our brain, and essentially it keeps track of time by monitoring the amount of light or darkness in our environment. There's also some other factors which can contribute to the governing of our circadian rhythm, but we'll chat about that a little bit later on. But essentially this type of activity or exposure to light is called stimuli. So the brain controls our body's processes by sending out neural and hormonal responses to these stimuli. So in the morning when when you wake up and your eyes and brain perceive natural light, your body produces cortisol, which helps you to feel more alert and awake. In the evening, as the natural light starts to disappear, our brains produce a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is known as our sleep hormone, and it promotes a state of relaxation and sleepiness in the body. To support this, our brain also upregulates a neurotransmitter called GABA. GABA decreases feelings of excitement or stimulation in the body and makes us feel more chilled, essentially. So we also have another system which complements our circadian rhythm, and that's our sleep-wake cycle. It's often referred to as the sleep-wake homeostasis. So homeostasis means balance or equilibrium in the body. So this sleep drive helps to regulate feelings of tiredness. We also have another system which complements our circadian rhythm, and it's our sleep-wake cycle, often known as our sleep-wake homeostasis. So homeostasis means balance or equilibrium in the body. And this sleep drive helps to regulate feelings of tiredness and wakefulness. And it's said for every hour you are awake, your desire to sleep or your sleep drive will become stronger and peak right before you go to bed. So living and having habits that support your natural circadian rhythm and sleep cycle is so important to improve your sleep quality, but also for your overall health. Things can go wrong and disrupt this cycle, and that's when we can run into issues with our sleep and wake cycles, and also have symptoms of physical and mental symptoms, and increase our risk of developing certain diseases. So when we sleep, we run through a cycle of 4 stages that last around 90 minutes in total. So the first 3 stages are considered non-rapid eye movement sleep, often abbreviated to NREM. And then the 4th stage is called the rapid eye movement sleep, which is often abbreviated to REM. The 3rd stage of the non-rapid eye movement sleep and the REM sleep cycle is when we have our deepest sleep and when all that cellular damage and repair work is done. The REM cycle helps to restore energy for the daytime in the brain and body, and this is when you also might find yourself dreaming. The amount of time spent in these 2 phases during the night is the most important. So ideally, you don't want to be waking during those lighter patterns, the first 2 cycles of sleep, in disrupting your sleep cycle and lessening the amount of time you're spent in that restorative sleep. So that's generally an overview of what happens when we sleep and how our bodies control our wake sleep cycle. Now Kirsten's going to chat a little bit about some of the things that can interfere with your circadian rhythm and getting that good quality sleep.
So you may or may not have heard before that going to bed by 10 p.m. is optimal for your sleep cycle. And one of the reasons for this is relating to the cortisol levels in your body. And cortisol is your stress hormone. Before I get into why, I'm just going to explain a little bit about what cortisol is and how exactly it affects the body. Cortisol is a hormone produced by a network called the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland communicating with your adrenal glands. The hypothalamus and your pituitary are in your brain, and they send messages down to your adrenals, which are above your kidneys. And your adrenals play a role in metabolism regulation, immune function, blood pressure, and your response to stress. So the HPA axis triggers the release of cortisol, and cortisol being your stress hormone, it helps with the regulation of blood sugar levels, also metabolism regulation, it helps with memory, and it helps to reduce inflammation within the body. So when cortisol is released, this is typically your fight or flight response, and this is when your body is preparing itself to react to anything that might threaten it. On the flip side though, high and chronic amounts of cortisol can lead to, in many cases, the opposite effect, and this is increased inflammation within the body, raised blood sugar levels, memory loss, and increased risk of many diseases. So cortisol is typically at its peak around 8 to 9 a.m., and then at its lowest between 9 and 12 p.m., where thereafter it starts to rise again, hitting its peak once again in the morning. So from 9 a.m., it will slowly start to climb down. And for that reason, going to bed before 12 in the morning or 12 a.m. is optimal for sleep, because if you are staying awake past this time, it just gets increasingly harder and harder every hour it gets later, because your cortisol is rising, so your body's in more of a stress state. And you really want to be going to bed between those peak hours of 9 to 12 p.m. for your cortisol and for general growth and repair. So this cycle is called the diurnal cortisol rhythm cycle. It's kind of hard to pronounce. I hope I said that right. If you work a night shift or you're staying up late at night, this can actually cause increased level of cortisol levels in the body. And I'm going to get into some tips and tricks later on how you can work with your cortisol levels naturally and how you can actually get a good night's sleep. So ideally, really, we want to be getting around 7 to 9 hours sleep.
Yeah, 7 to 9 hours is definitely the goal. As you were saying about going to bed before 12 a.m., going back to the sleep cycle, the 90-minute sleep cycle phase before midnight is said to be be the most powerful in terms of restoration for the body. And there's a quote that says, every hour of sleep before midnight is worth 2 after midnight. And I think that's really true. So most of the repair of cells and management of things like appetite and metabolism during the night is done by the release of a hormone called human growth hormone during our sleep cycles. So human growth hormone is released in pulses during different stages of the night, but the biggest release is said to occur before midnight. So that's another reason why it's so important to get to bed before this time, because not only will you find yourself falling asleep easier because you have less cortisol in the body, but you will also have the most restorative and healing sleep.
Yeah, it's so true. And there's so many benefits of getting a good night's sleep. And this can include improved concentration, improved memory function. It helps you maintain a healthy weight. It's good for your heart and your immune system. It takes care of your emotional well-being. It's really, really important for your mental health, and it helps reduce your stress levels.
Yeah, definitely. You can't underestimate the benefits of a good night's rest, that's for sure. So similar to that, what happens if you don't get enough sleep is almost the opposite of the benefit. So sleep deprivation leads to tiredness, irritability, and issues with concentrating the next day. This can affect our performance, both physically and mentally. And I think we can all relate to this after staying up too late, binge watching some Netflix, or after a night out. You definitely just don't feel on your A game the next day when you've experienced some sleep deprivation. That's an immediate effect that happens after you sleep for less hours than you're meant to. But another one that occurs almost immediately as well is the interference with our appetite regulating hormones. So that's leptin and ghrelin. These hormones are responsible for stimulating our hunger and also our fullness signals after we've had a meal. So when they become imbalanced, when we're sleep deprived, we might find ourselves reaching for more sugary snacks because we're feeling hungrier, but also because we need that quick energy fix to be able to concentrate and get through the day. Even if it's a short-term solution, increasingly over time, if we're experiencing this sleep deprivation and interference with our hunger hormones, we can come into issues with excess food consumed and potentially weight gain. All of this comes from just a couple of nights of messed up sleep. It's quite a lot. So you can imagine the effects that it has on your health if you're constantly sleep deprived. So it can be pretty astonishing. So chronically not getting enough sleep can put you at risk of a number of chronic health conditions. So high blood pressure is one of them, which puts you at higher risk of heart disease and stroke, type 2 diabetes, causing issues with your insulin sensitivity and blood sugar levels, burnout and fatigue, but also an increase in your risk of developing depression and anxiety. Additionally, sleep deprivation can also weaken your immune system, increase your risk of having an injury or accident, lower your sex drive, and just generally reduce the quality of your life. When we are in a deep state of sleep, our bodies focus on building and repairing cells. So if we aren't dropping into that deep REM type sleep, then we're missing out on this repair.
Such good information there. Thanks, Cara. I just wanted to add that this is kind of a myth because I used to really think that I was a night owl, and I would have always classified myself as a night owl. I would have never been able to wake up in the morning. And yeah, I used to stay up till when I was younger, probably like 4 a.m. and then get up at like 10 or 11. And I would have never thought that I could have got up at 6:30, 7:30. It depends on how I feel now, but I've completely changed my thought pattern around this. And although it is somewhat genetic, linking between if you're a night owl or morning person, the difference is actually so slim. And since last year, I've been making an effort to get up in the morning and exercise in the morning, whereas before I would have always exercised at night. And now I comfortably wake up at like 7 every day. Gosh, you should ask my partner before, but I was a nightmare. I would like moan and groan.
I've been complete opposite my whole life. Like when I was young, like my parents used to joke because I used to put myself to bed. I was so tired, and I've always been that way. But I think as I have experienced times in my life where my sleep pattern has changed and I've had the same issues with getting up in the morning because I've gone to bed later, and it's just really like messes with your cycle, and it's really hard to change.
But it can be done, just so everyone knows. I've done it, and I would have never thought this is possible, but now I actually love getting up in the morning.
Yeah, it's great. I like it as well, actually. Depends how much sleep I've had the night before, but I would classify myself as a morning person now. Interesting as well, when we are sleep deprived and sleeping less hours than our body needs, so such as in a situation like that, we actually create a sleep debt that accumulates over time with chronic sleep loss. So if you're sleeping less than your 7 to 9 hours per night, you start going into a sleep debt. So what that means is that you can't cheat your sleep, just like you can't cheat a bank. You have to repay it. Otherwise, you're going to suffer from symptoms, whether it's physical or mental burnout or anything else that we've discussed today. But you do need to repay it. And the interesting thing is that our sleep or brain doesn't like to take back one-off repayments. So just having extra sleep on the weekends, or maybe the other way around, you're going out all weekend and staying up all night, so sleeping for an extra hour throughout the week, it doesn't actually pay off that debt immediately. So what our sleep bank prefers is constant smaller repayments over weeks or months to repay that sleep debt. So what you really have to do is make consistent changes and prioritize your sleep to help reduce the symptoms associated with sleep deprivation and rebalance your circadian rhythm and sleep cycle.
Yeah, and it's true as well. When you have jet lag, you're not supposed to go to bed and just sleep the whole day. You're actually supposed to wait and sleep at your normal time and then get a regular night's rest in that nighttime, rather than just having like a huge chunk, because then it will affect your have like a play on effect on your other days.
Yeah, it's like playing into your sleep hormones there and your circadian rhythm. I know when I moved to London, I experienced the worst jet lag that I've ever had. I feel like I've been quite lucky in terms of not experiencing too much in my past trips. But when I came to London, oh my God, like I was wiped out for, I'm going to say nearly 2 weeks. It really interrupted my cycle. And I made the mistake of falling asleep in the afternoon after I'd arrived. So I slept in the day, which is the big no-no. And then I was just awake all night, like wide-eyed awake. And it took, about 2 weeks to get back into a normal pattern.
That's actually quite a long time, but I guess everyone's so different and unique, right? I typically don't suffer with jet lag all that much, but for some reason I went and met my family in Vegas a few years back, and it was about a 10-hour flight, and it was direct, and I was zonked. My brother was like, all you've basically done is sleep this entire time. Mm-hmm. And it was just so weird, because normally I fly to Canada whenever I visit home, and then I fly back, and I'm usually pretty okay, but when that one particular trip, for some reason, I was only there for 5 days, so sleeping half the days there was pretty detrimental, especially when you're in Vegas.
Yeah, it feels like a bit of a waste, but although I'm sure like a lot of people sleep through the day when it comes to holidaying in Vegas, out all night.
Yeah, that's probably true. So let's get into some sleep hygiene tips, shall we?
Yeah, definitely. Kirsten, do you want to take us away with this?
Absolutely. So some of the more popular sleep hygiene tips, you may or may not have heard of them, but I'm just going to start us off. The first one is light. We typically want to keep our room dark at night, and you can use blackout curtains or whatever you have on your window, but do shut them so that the room is dark while you're sleeping. And if you want to use dimmed lights about an hour before bed so that your body can actually start to produce melatonin, that would also be helpful, and it would just kind of like prepare you for the hours of sleep. Try to steer clear of screens and phones, just because the light can have the opposite effect as that. But then also the blue light that comes from the screens can actually suppress the secretion of melatonin, and you can counteract this with those blue light blocking glasses. And I think on some phones you can have a blue light or like a night mode that can reduce the risk of that happening. If you are watching TV as well, try not to watch anything too anxiety causing that might keep you awake. I know I'm personally really guilty of this with a lot of TV shows. I'll watch like The Walking Dead or something before I go to bed, and then I'm like, oh my God, that person died. I'm so sad.
Yeah, you watch all the scary ones.
I do like scary shows, but if I watch them late at night, I get really involved in what's happening, and I just can't sleep after that, and I'm just thinking about it for hours. And also too, it applies to your reading. If you're reading at night, try to read things for pleasure rather than work, and also not anything too like mentally stimulating. And this will just make it a bit easier to switch off. So then when you wake up in the morning, you want to get sunlight, because sunshine actually helps the body to regulate the circadian rhythm. And this is by telling the body when to increase and to decrease your melatonin levels. Try not to hit snooze in the morning on the alarm, because it can actually make you feel more drowsy for the rest of the day, as well as disrupting your natural sleep cycle. And then you want to kind of develop a routine before you go to bed. So go to bed at the same time every night, wake up at the same time every morning, and this will help your body create its own natural circadian rhythm.
as well as creating sort of like a wind down routine and developing a set of activities that you maybe do the same each night so that it can send signals to your brain that you are ready to go to bed, because our bodies are creatures of habit and they will respond to things that you do over and over again. If you are exercising, if you can, try to exercise in the morning, because this is when your cortisol is at its peak highest. So you're kind of exerting and giving out energy at the time when your body is most capable of doing that. And then also if you're exercising at night, it can actually keep you awake for longer. So try to get that in the morning or in the afternoon for peak optimal times. And then also, contrary to the belief, because exercise does increase your cortisol levels, but it actually helps to decrease your cortisol levels later at night. So exercising actually helps you get a better night's sleep. And I've experienced this firsthand this year because, as I said before, I have been exercising more in the morning, and my sleep patterns have improved so much. I used to have to take herbs to go to sleep, and I was always just really high alert and stimulated at night, and I just wasn't falling asleep, and I was waking up quite a lot. And then since I've started exercising in the morning, I've actually been able to fall asleep quite easy and stay asleep for most of the night. Have you found anything similar, Cara?
Yeah, definitely. When I exercise, I almost like wear myself out. So I'm much more exhausted come the evening time, and your body just wants to rest, I think. So I definitely sleep deeper if I've been particularly active in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's definitely worth a try if you're going to start adding an exercise routine into your life. Just try, and maybe even if starting off with a walk in the morning or a light jog and just seeing how you go, see how you feel. Another thing you want to keep in mind is keeping your room at the correct temperature if you can. So around 18 degrees Celsius or 65 degrees Fahrenheit, if you're in America, is sort of the optimal temperature that we want to have for sleeping. In summer, if in Britain, most houses don't have air conditioning in the house. So keeping your windows at night most definitely, or using a fan will help you kind of keep at that regular temperature, as well as using bedding materials like cotton or bamboo or linen. And these can help your body regulate its own temperature, as well as help to absorb any sweat that you might have. If you have a warm bath or shower before you go to bed, it can also be quite helpful, because the heat from the bath and the shower obviously heats your body, and then the sort of dramatic drop in temperature that you get when you're out of the shower sends signals to your brain that you may be getting ready for bed, and then you might start producing more melatonin as well. So all these things can be quite helpful. And then in terms of food and drinks, try and make sure you're having quite a protein-rich breakfast. Protein obviously helps to regulate our blood sugar levels and keep us full, but also if you're having high amounts of carbs in the morning, this can actually suppress your cortisol, but you want your cortisol to kind of stay peaked in the morning and suppress it at night. So just making sure you're having like a significant amount of protein in the morning when you're eating is optimal. And for that same reason, eating things like starchy carbs like sweet potatoes and potatoes at night is beneficial to help you with your cortisol levels and help with sleep as well. Don't eat too late though. Your metabolism tends to be lower at night, so you're more likely to store the food as fat in your body. And also it's just good for your body to have sort of that fasting period while you sleep, so that it has time to repair and do all the things that Cara mentioned that is required to keep your body healthy. And also too, with me, if I eat a meal late at night and I'm full, I will not be able to sleep.
Yeah, I think on the other hand as well though, if you are hungry after dinner, like you do feel hunger before bed, like having a snack isn't going to cause dramatic weight gain or anything like that. It's more if you're making these consistent choices over time. But going to sleep really hungry can also impede your ability to fall asleep as well. So having a full but not too full stomach can help you feel safe and grounded.
Yes, thanks for pointing that out. That's really important to point out. This is more relating to regular meal structures, and that's consisting of your whole dinner meals, eating them earlier on if you can. Of course, if you're hungry, eat, honor your hunger signals. It's very important. But yeah, developing a routine when you're eating your sort of main meals earlier on and not so late is kind of where I was going with that one.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of drinking, alcohol, as we know, and caffeine have both shown to negatively affect your sleep. With alcohol, it's especially in the REM stage that Cara explained earlier, and this is even with one drink.
Yeah, alcohol is an interesting one because a lot of people use it to help them fall asleep because it's a bit of a depressant in that sense. But even if it does help you fall asleep, the quality of sleep that you have is definitely decreased. And yeah, even after one drink, it can really affect your sleep cycles.
Yeah, and you're more likely to wake up throughout the night. So you may fall asleep straight away, but you'll be waking up more often throughout the night, and you're not getting that sort of deep reparative sleep that we really need. So some tips with alcohol, just on the topic, is trying to have at least 3 to 4 days off per week as a minimum, and at least 2 to 3 days in a row, so the liver has time to repair itself, and so that you are having a significant amount of days in your week of having good night's sleep. And with caffeine, having it after 12 p.m. can make it harder to fall asleep. This is because each person metabolizes caffeine differently, and some people take longer or some people take shorter times to feel its effect. And caffeine usually has a peak around 30 to 60 minutes after consumption, but then has a half-life of around 3 to 5 hours, meaning it can take up to 10 hours to fully leave your body. And caffeine can decrease the amount of sleep-inducing neurotransmitters in the brain. So just keeping these cups before 12. Everyone loves coffee. Well, most people love coffee. We both like coffee. So
we love coffee.
No judgment on coffee. Have your coffee, just have it before 12 p.m.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think a lot of people don't think of that because they might have a cup of coffee and get that peaks quite soon after and think, okay, I'm done. But actually, you're right. With the half-life, it's still floating around in the system. And even though it's not having such intense effects, it's still there keeping you awake and disturbing your sleep rhythms.
And for those of you who don't know, the half-life is just when it's typically referred to in medications, but the half-life of caffeine is basically how long the body takes to break down half of the effects of that substance. And this is the same with teas as well. Green tea, black tea, they also have caffeine in them. So also monitoring if you're having any cups of tea at night can also help to reduce sleep deprivation. Before I realized that this could be affecting me, I used to have about 3 to 4 cups of green tea per night, and then I was never sleeping, and I couldn't figure out why. But then I had this kind of aha moment, and I was like, oh yeah, there's caffeine in green tea.
Yeah, I went through a phase where I was drinking almost like 6 cups of coffee a day out, and it was a bad time in my life. Actually, I had such bad anxiety and I wasn't sleeping, and I was like, oh, like I wonder why. Like, and there you go.
So 6 cups is more than.
Oh my God, it was way too much. It was before I went to uni to study, and I was just living a different lifestyle essentially. But yeah, it's interesting to know how just these little things that we can change can really have such a profound effect on our health and anxiety and sleep quality and all of those things.
Yeah, so if you're going to have coffee, having 1 to 2 cups a day, it's absolutely fine. Just making sure you're having it before 12. So some supplements that can help you with sleep. Obviously, the main one that we know that everyone's heard about is melatonin, but this isn't actually legal to sell in the UK. You can get it in America and Canada, but you can't get it here.
Yeah, you also can't get it in Australia as well.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And this is because it's a hormone, and in the UK, you can't legally sell hormones. But some herbs and supplements you can try are things like passion flower or lemon balm, and these are sedative herbs, so they can help calm you and get you ready for bed. There's also things called adaptogens, and one of the main ones is ashwagandha, which you may have heard of, and it can help your body to regulate its cortisol levels, therefore resulting in better quality sleep. As well, magnesium, particularly magnesium glycinate, it's very common to help you relax, and for people who do suffer with restless leg syndrome at night, it can help get rid of that as well. And going back to the green tea, there's something called L-theanine from green tea, which is actually a calming agent, and this is typically why some people who can't tolerate coffee can tolerate green tea, because it's got this sort of L-theanine to help balance out the effects of the caffeine. Also, things like valerian root is quite popular, and CBD, which a lot of people are using now due to its calming effects. I've been using it. I've actually found it to be super helpful to reduce anxiety levels and improve my mood, but I take it in the morning, so I can't tell you if it's been helping me with sleep, but I can definitely feel an effect since I've started taking it. But everyone's really different, so it's always best to speak to a practitioner before taking any of these. Some work for others and some don't, so just be mindful of that. And then there's also things like essential oils. Lavender and chamomile are really popular, and they're very calming, so you can burn them in your room. You can get a diffuser, or you can sort of rub them. If you can get essential oils that you can rub on your skin, or you can spray them on your sheets, stuff like that. And I just wanted to add as well, sleeping pills, a lot of people take, but they can actually have a negative side effect and can make your sleep problems worse if used really regularly. So always only use them if you've been given them by your GP, and always use them in the way that your GP has advised you to take them, because misuse of these pills, it can make you become reliant on the medication as well as having a negative impact on your sleep patterns. So if you are a night worker, obviously the same rules are not going to be applying to you with the sleep pattern and the times you should go to sleep, but following some of these guidelines will be helpful, and this includes having your room dark before you go to bed, not having massive meals all the time before you go to bed, and developing some sort of routine just to kind of get some signals sending to your brain that you are ready to sleep, and doing whatever you can with what you have. There's a really popular book called Why We Sleep, and this is by somebody called Matthew Walker. And one key point I took out of that book was that if you wake up a lot in the night, because I used to wake up a lot in the night, is to actually get out of bed if you're awake for extended periods of time, because if you get out of bed, do something quite calming out of your bed and come back in, it's almost sort of like a refresh. And the less time that you're in bed awake is better, because the more time that you spend in bed awake, your body can actually start to associate you being in bed as a place of being awake. So you want the bed to primarily be your place of sleep. And that also means don't work in your bed, don't eat in your bed, things like that are all really important. Did you have any tips to add, Cara?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think the bedroom should be for sleep and sex only. So just kind of keeping it as a sacred area for that. With the shift workers, just trying to follow all of these guidelines as best you can. Ideally, still having your 3 regular meals per day, not having caffeine during the night time. And if you are having a lot of issues in terms of like your sleep cycle and how that's affecting you, or if you need some personalized advice on that, just reaching out to somebody that can help you with that. And lastly, I think similar to people who are working shift work is new parents. So they often experience a lot of sleep deprivation naturally as well. So some tips on that can be to sleep when your baby sleeps. I think it's really common for mums to want to take opportunity of the time while baby's down. So they want to get some chores done, cooking done, some me time. But if you can, ideally trying to have a nap when your baby sleeps as well can help you kind of repay back some of that sleep deprivation debt. Negotiating with your partner to take turns waking up in the night, if that's something that works for you. So you can kind of share out that deprivation, that sleep deprivation, and get help if you can, if you have a parent nearby that can almost do like a shift work during the day for you, looking after bub so you can like catch up on some sleep, really utilize that and don't be afraid to ask for help. And I guess just know that it's not going to last forever, and that hopefully soon you will be sleeping throughout the night again.
Yeah, and our bodies are designed to cope with these shorter periods. So as an example for new mothers, our bodies are designed to accept that, for this few month period that you may not be getting enough sleep, but then it will still allow you to get back into a natural rhythm after kind of the time you needed the most is over.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, too, something that we can note since we've just had a full moon here is the moon cycle, because for a long time it's been thought that the moon affects people's sleep, and now scientists have actually decided that this is true, that it does. And this is possibly due to the gravitational pull that the moon has, because if you think about it, if it can affect the tides, and we're mostly made of water, so it makes sense that it can affect our bodies and our rhythms, but also to the increased light at night. If you don't have great curtains covering your windows, can also keep people awake from the moon. And this could also explain why, there's like the typical rumor that people start to act really strange around full moon, and actually it's really because of sleep deprivation.
Yeah. We can blame the crazies on the sleep.
Yeah, and I always have really vivid dreams when there's a full moon.
Yeah, I've just experienced some too, which I was telling you about the other day.
Yeah, I actually haven't told you this, but our friend, we're going for a walk on Friday to these really beautiful cliffs in England, and our friend who's coming with us said that he had a dream about me and something to do with the cliffs, but he's not told me yet. So I'm hoping that the dream was not that I fell off or something.
Oh my god, he's gonna spring it on you on the day.
Yeah, he said he was going to tell me on the day, so you'll hear as well because you'll be there. So hopefully it's something good.
Yeah, so do you really notice a change in your sleep cycle around the moon cycle?
Yeah, I think mostly it's just the dreams. I would say that in the last couple of nights I did wake up quite a lot. I had a dream last night that my partner was knocking on the door and telling me to wake up. And I actually woke up and answered, and I was like, yeah. And then I looked beside, he was still there. So just some really strange, spooky dreams. And you?
Yeah, just really the dreams and waking up a little bit, because I don't normally wake during the night, but it's something that does happen around the moon. But I've been paying a little bit more attention to it in the last 5 months than I would normally. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it as well.
Yeah, it might do. I know for me, obviously I said before that I have kind of struggled for a lot of years with waking up in the night, but actually I had a genetic test done last year and it said that I'm the type of person who does do that. But yeah, it's definitely, I noticed it's been stronger with the moon. But now, thanks to all these lovely tips, I'm getting much better night's sleep and I'm feeling much better. And because of the exercise in the morning, I think it's had a huge impact.
So yeah, if you are somebody who struggles to fall asleep or get a good quality night's sleep, whether you've had testing done and you know it's genetic or not, really looking at incorporating some of those tips that Kirsten took us through to help incorporate a sleep routine that supports your circadian rhythm and melatonin production, and looking at areas that you can make tweaks in terms of when you're eating, your alcohol consumption, your caffeine consumption, and all those nice things like that to really help you improve your sleep quality.
Great. Thanks for wrapping us up. I think that's all for today. Thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. So until next time.
Thank you for listening to our show today. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you subscribe, let us know what you thought in the comments, and share it with all the important women in your life. There are plenty more of these episodes to come, so please visit our website to stay in the know. You will find us at womanthings.com. That's WOMXN. Much love, Kirsten and Cara.
The information contained in this podcast is not intended to treat, diagnose, or replace the advice of your healthcare practitioner. Always consult with a qualified health professional if you have a pre-existing health condition or are currently taking any medications before making any changes to your diet or lifestyle.